Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Talking Shit Stick Show. So I'd like to welcome my co-host Laura Massey.
Hi everybody.
Hey Laura, and we've got a special guest this week. We have Paul Lowe. Hello Paul. How are you doing today?
Yeah, not bad. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Good to have you on the show. So can you tell the listeners a bit about yourself, Paul?
Well, I'm a specialist in an area called pulsed electromagnetic fields, which is a branch of energy medicine. I work as a therapist, though most of my work these days is over the phone. It's coaching people and supplying these systems. I have people with a vast array of different health issues, and then lots of people who just want to improve their general quality of life. So it's a very varied kind of work.
So tell us a little bit about your background, because we've spoken about it, because you've worked for a number of years in energy medicine to start.
Yeah. I started off with more traditional forms of energy medicine, Reiki and Qigong. And this is no disrespect to them because I think they can be very powerful, but for the musculoskeletal issues that I found myself with back in the very early 2000s, they just weren't strong enough. So I gravitated to different forms of energy medicine. Initially I had frozen shoulders on both sides, which is a horrible, very painful condition that will stop you driving and doing all kinds of things. And it was kind of by accident that a friend recommended to me a Russian technology that you can loosely call microcurrent. And I trained in that myself, and that led me off in a lot of different directions. So energy medicine is an area that most people haven't heard of, but it's got incredible healing potential. And so I started off with the traditional, and then I went into technology. And I guess I've always been a bit of a gadget freak, and that eventually led me to pulsed electromagnetic fields, or PEMF. And that's been my whole business now for about 6-7 years.
So what was the pre-runner to PEMF that you came across, you were telling us about in Russia?
That's the generic name for it is microcurrent stimulation. So it's a small handheld device that puts an electrical signal through the skin into the nerve receptors just below the epidermis, and basically talks the language of the central nervous system. So it coaxes the body into various healing responses, and it's part diagnostic as well. So that led on to low-level laser, LED light therapy, things like radionics, the use of different frequencies. And then eventually in that journey, I found PEMF.
Have you always been into this then? When did you come into kind of looking into technology as a part of healing? Was it kind of like a drive for you, or was there a natural kind of knowing when you grew up you wanted to look into this, look into that, or was there
no, way back in my previous career, I was a journalist.
Okay, yeah.
So I made this huge career shift around the turn of the century. And I've been a financial journalist for over 20 years in London, Tokyo, Hong Kong, New York. But I did have a sense that I wasn't really fulfilled as I came towards the end of that journey. It was challenging, but something else was calling me, I guess. And then it was various health issues in my family and in myself that drew me into this. And yeah, it's been quite a wild ride in many ways.
Beautiful.
Believe it or not, this is, being a healer and learning about health is actually more complex and more interesting than it was living in New York, running a global news organization with 600 journalists. It's actually more challenging and more interesting now than it was then.
So what was the first things you tried then? So you said you tried for the health benefits. What were some of the first technologies you tried out?
Well, the one I mentioned, microcurrent stimulation,
Yeah.
which is an incredible. It's often known by its Russian name, Skenar, but there are various variants of it. That is an incredible technology. Low-level laser has enormous benefits, and sometimes I'll use that in conjunction with PEMF. But the reason why PEMF took over everything else was that I found that I could help so many people very easily, and in many ways compliance became a non-issue because they bought a system, they used it at home, and on a daily basis improved their health. So it's almost like I didn't need the other technology. I mean, I still have the other technologies, and I'll still recommend them to people at times. You know, combined protocols, as you guys are exploring, are incredibly effective. So I'll recommend those at times, but most of the time I'm just dealing with PMF.
What excites you about the PMF technology, Paul? What is it you've seen? What changes has it made to people's lives?
I often describe it as being an enabler. So it can make just about every other therapy that you might imagine a lot more successful. So, you know, I've got clients who are just about every type of therapist you could ever imagine, from psychotherapists to Bowen therapists, acupuncturists, reflexologists, osteopaths, etc. And I almost can't think of anyone who, among that therapist community, who's told me that it hasn't significantly added to the results that they get with their core therapies. So it's an enabler for a lot of other things to work well. But just on a general user basis, you know, we, setting aside the epidemics of lifestyle diseases that we have, you're seeing massive levels of sleep loss, anxiety, depression, various things, if you're familiar with it, that are examples of the symptoms of electrosensitivity. There's a lot going on, and the way that this can really improve people's quality of life is quite dramatic.
Can you give us the mechanics of how it works?
Sure. So at its most basic, you can say that you're lying on a whole body mat once or twice a day, and inside the mat you've got these large copper coils that have an electrical current going through them, which then causes a magnetic field to be produced. And the very sophisticated little computer that attaches to the system configures the signal coming through those coils such that it pulses and that it contains various frequencies. So in a sense, you're recreating Earth's magnetic field as it used to be before we bombarded ourselves with every kind of frequency possible through the communication technologies that we have now. And in doing that, you're re-energizing the cell membranes. So if you think of your 70 trillion cells as the central part of the cell is not necessarily the nucleus and the DNA. Obviously, they have a huge part to play, but most of the transactions in the cell are taking place at the cell membrane. So that's where oxygen goes in, nutrients go in, water goes in, toxins are expelled, and it's where neurotransmitters are produced and received. So just about everything in the body is a complex of signals and processes taking place at the cell membrane. So if you re-energize that cell membrane and get the electrical polarity of it correct and the voltage in the cell higher, then a lot of things start to take care of themselves that are not currently working optimally. I don't know if that does that make sense? Is that getting too technical, or?
No, I think that's layman terms enough. Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's understandable. Yeah.
So it might be good to talk about EMF because that connects to PEMF.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about EMF, Paul.
Okay, so EMFs or electrosmog. If you think back, say, 150, 200 years, we didn't have mains electricity. And it's only since the early 1980s that we've had personal computers and mobile phones, and this explosion of cordless communication technologies that's happened since then. So the problem with all of those technologies is that they're using frequencies that are dramatically outside what the human body responds to in a positive biological way. So if you, in a fairly typical household, if you've got Wi-Fi on all the time, you might have Wi-Fi transmitters, retransmitters. You may well have a smart meter. You're using your mobile phone all the time. And you might be quite close to a mobile phone mast. All of that is affecting the cells in your body. I mean, personally, I've been to 3 international conferences on this stuff and been blown away by the amount of mainstream research on it. This is not strange woo-woo tinfoil hat stuff. It's real. It's there, and the people I've listened to are medical researchers, professors of medicine, people like that. So my own approach to it is I don't, although I'm saying this right now, I don't kind of try and push this in people's faces and say, believe me. I just say, it's up to you whether you believe what I'm saying or not. But if you start doing a little bit of research, just go on PubMed and start typing in electrosmog or EMF, and you can start naming your medical condition, and you're going to find a huge amount of thousands and thousands of research studies on this. So that's what EMF and electrosmog's about, and the stakes are very high for all of us. So PEMF acts as a partial antidote to that. I'm not going to say it's not the cure. There is no cure as such. Short of, I don't know, living in an igloo in the Antarctic or somewhere, it's everywhere around us. But what you can do with a PEMF system, if it's configured in the right way, is to re-energize those cell membranes that have been so fatigued and oversensitized by being bombarded with all those alien frequencies. Alien in the sense of non-standard biology frequencies. So, you're talking, if you think of the frequencies embedded in Earth's magnetic field and the atmosphere above the Earth, you're really talking in a range of something like 0 to 50 hertz, 50 cycles per second. If you take a standard, let's say, DECT cordless phone system, that's transmitting at almost 3 billion hertz. And, and some of the other communications technologies that are out there are going a lot above that now.
So what some of the studies showing the EMF can do, like on negative, for long-term health over a long period of time, being exposed to that higher amounts of them? What are some of the side effects you could pick up?
Oh, when you look at the research, there are quite a few major health conditions that are linked to it, that very specific studies linked to it. I'm not sure how much I want to get into very specific health conditions, partly from a legal perspective and
Yeah.
partly just pragmatically. But let's just say that a lot of the major neurological conditions have links. Some of the most serious life-threatening conditions have links. And one of the things that concerns me most is the effect on what's called the autonomic nervous system. So that's the nervous system that keeps us going all the time unconsciously. And the gold standard window into assessing that is called heart rate variability. So if you're an average person who's noticed that your quality of sleep has deteriorated over the last few years, or the last decade maybe, and you find you're getting more and more anxious, there are reasons for that with all the news that we get, but there's something else behind that. And then if you become more reactive to stress as it happens, so everyone goes through stress, divorce, bereavement, loss of job, family breakups, all kinds of stressful events come at us. And you might have noticed that some people just take life in their stride. These things happen to them and they stay pretty calm and cool about it. And other people will go off the deep end at the smallest event. So there's a big difference between people's levels of autonomic nervous tone. And if you've been badly affected by EMFs, you become more and more vulnerable to those stressful events as they happen. And it's worse. I've known people's virtually entire personalities change after something like a mobile phone mast being put up in very close proximity to their house. So much of this comes down to the autonomic nervous system. What state is your nervous system in will predict a lot of how you'll respond to stressful events, what level of sleep quality you'll get, and then, as I said, there are more serious things that can start happening gradually over time.
Yeah, so it does feel like it's kind of like over the last, say, 10 years, we've become more of an unnatural, like humans. We've got more and more stuff going on around us, internet, Wi-Fi. I'm not like saying that it completely ruined you, but we have kind of lost that natural ability to be in a natural space, having a natural frequency. And the good thing PEMF offers is you're able to actually access that again. You're able to get that natural healing frequency. And for me, using the mat itself, the best thing it did for me was, I'd say let's talk about the nervous system, because it helped me be much calmer during the day, just feel more in my body, more aligned, more in a natural rhythm, and so on.
Yeah, that's quite a common experience. And you would really know it if you'd really been badly affected. You would be desperate for help. And sometimes what will happen is there's in my experience, often if there's some trauma around the head, like major dental surgery or whiplash or concussion or something like that, that coupled especially with an emotional trauma, you're suddenly into a world of pain. And so much of this is coming down to this disturbance of the autonomic nervous system. So, if you're someone who, because of that combination of factors, is suffering greatly, then I'm not saying that PEMF is the only route. It's not a panacea. It's not the cure or anything like that. But in acting as an enabler that helps various other interventions, whether it's nutrition or some other form of therapy, to be more effective, it offers then a way out of that situation. And when someone's getting into conditions that are almost classics for this kind of approach, when someone is suffering from continuous, very deep fatigue, and they can barely get out of bed at noon, they would be very, very well advised to consider this kind of technology.
So what experiences have you had combining it with other modalities? And what modalities have you combined it with?
Right. If you take someone who's massively affected by an insect-borne vector, like a tick that you might pick up in a forest, then I'd say that's literally one of the most difficult medical conditions that is possible to treat. Doctors don't have the answers. It's often thought that it's in someone's head, but they've suddenly gone from being active individuals to almost totally unable to function properly. So in a situation like that, you would be very well advised, yes, to look into this technology, but also to use a different technology that would emphasize the use of certain frequencies beyond what our systems can do. So that's its own field. I don't want to get too much into it for various reasons, but that it's a very specific area where a combination of a frequency approach and this kind of cell re-energizing approach, plus one or two other things, can literally bring people out of that over time. This is not a quick fix. You're talking about months and months of daily treatment. Another example would be, meditation. Meditation combined with going on the mat can be very, very effective to help people deal with major stress levels. If you talk about something like energy psychology, then helping people to deal with PTSD and emotional traumas. And I think you guys are going very much in that direction. And I wouldn't claim that the stuff that I've experimented with is necessarily powerful enough to successfully treat someone with deep PTSD. You need more powerful stuff again than that. Whether it's rapid eye movement therapy or whatever. Personally, when I'm using the Mat system, I'll often have two massive light panels above my body. So I'm irradiating my whole body with photons from above, just as I'm getting magnetic field energy from below. So that's another example of a fairly basic form of combined energy medicine.
Yeah, I mean, this is similarly why we use the Lucia light number 3 therapy, the hypnagogic light. We use meditation, as you were talking about. We use magnetic hematite and crystal therapy. We use craniosacral therapy. And in fact, we have used all of those modalities at once So the mat is a really valid part of all those treatments. So actually, from our point of view and why we do it as combined, it hits everything at once. So the parasympathetic, in essence, has to let down. And as most people will know who've been listening to what we do in combined, we like to get people into as deep a state of relaxation as we can. So we're very specific in doing one following the other, like an infrared sauna to open up the pores before you go into a flotation tank, a sensory deprivation. Salt float is what it is. And then from there, we might use a massage gun as well, Paul. We've got deep tissue massage hyperbolt guns, which we use on people. And then we'll put them on the mat. So we're already like working on that really deep state of relaxation to get that parasympathetic to really let down, so we can even begin to start on some of the trauma release. And I think what you're saying is so important. This is not just one treatment and it's done. Releasing PTSD, the deep traumas that people are holding, the stuff that the programs that they're holding in the nervous system can take many, many sessions. I mean, even in craniosacral therapy alone, we like a client to book at least 3, in a row, so that we can actually start to make inroads. But the beauty of the mat, its contribution to the combined is huge because of everything you've been saying. I mean, I'm sure there's actually other modalities, Dale, that we haven't used yet that we could use with the mat. We do use some sound therapy.
Yeah.
And we have used Reiki as well.
Yeah, it can be very effective with acupuncture. I've had acupuncturists tell me that when they're taking pulse readings on the wrists, they've noticed as much improvement from one mat treatment as they would expect from needling. So you can imagine if you're combining the two together, then you can have 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah.
And so it is that.
Go on, Dale. Go on.
That combination of doing it, and this is like another thing for people listening, is when you're doing therapies and going through processes like this, it's like Laura said, it's important not to get one, but to have back to back to back, to have that experience of actually allowing yourself to let down, because we've had people come in with some deep trauma stuck in them, and it's taken them about 3 days, and there was a big release, and there was crying, screaming, and it literally took about 15 hours worth of therapies back to back to back to actually get them to go into a state of, right, I'm ready to release this now. I've gone through the soul, I've gone through the relaxation, I've gone through 2 days of therapy, but now I'm actually ready to release it. Because some people come to us and they're like stone. They literally are. It takes at least 2 days to actually start breaking down the stone, chipping it slowly down. And on the 3rd and 4th day, they just start having these releases where they're actually like, fuck, I can actually get rid of it now.
Yeah.
And equally, there are some very spiritual people who still are stuck. So it just doesn't necessarily follow.
Not really.
How spiritual, yes. How spiritual you are either, does it, Dale? Because we think maybe
it doesn't.
they're more relaxed or more enlightened or whatever. But no, it's still there. It's still there. So there's a couple of questions in the chat, Paul. How does this compare to the Unified Healing EES Energy Enhancement System equipment?
Ooh, that's a difficult one. I mean, I know of that system. It's based on scalar wave technology, I believe. And I mean, I've been using a form of scalar wave for 20 years or so, in the form of low-level lasers with scalar wave technology embedded. And I'm quite a big believer in that. It can be a very efficient way of transmitting frequencies. But that, in terms of the cost difference between those, a good frequency programmable low-level laser unit is going to cost you maybe $2,000, £2,000. One of those EES systems, I can't even remember. I was blown away by the cost, and I think it's something like $15,000 for one unit and $150,000 for a series of them. So I don't know. I guess if someone's got very deep pockets, or else for a therapy center, it could be a good way of working if they're very effective. I've never experienced it myself, so I can't speak from experience. But I was kind of blown away by the cost of it, I have to say. But maybe it's so good it's justified. I don't know.
Okay. And Dragonfly asked, how can you make a healing business with PEMF therapy mats?
Usually it's done in conjunction with other modalities. For whatever reasons, I've actually had almost a flood of inquiries over the last 6 months to a year from different centers who are combining our mats with, if I think of the OsteoStrong Centre in Tunbridge Wells that opened up at the start of the year, they're using bone and muscle loading technology to improve people's bone density and that kind of thing. And they're finding our mats are absolutely perfect to go alongside that. Or a centre just outside Belfast who are using it in conjunction with flotation tanks and far infrared sauna. Or a centre over in Bath who are using it in conjunction with hyperbaric oxygen chambers and something else. Oh, red light therapy. One of the top clinics on Harley Street are using our mat in conjunction with, I don't even recall all the technologies. They've got some of the most advanced alternative healing technologies I've ever come across there. Just staggeringly advanced stuff. So for whatever reason, I've had more and more therapists at the clinic level coming to me in recent times to use this as a core part of their combined treatments.
Yeah, and that's like combined therapies do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess as an ordinary therapist without a big clinic around you, probably the classic way of making it work from a business standpoint would be to differentiate yourself as an acupuncturist or an osteopath who gets higher level results as a result of using PEMF in conjunction with your core therapy. That's probably the best way of explaining it.
Mm-hmm. So let's give a medical example. Somebody with fibromyalgia. So if they don't have their own mat and they're seeking PEMF treatment, how often would it be a good idea for them to go? What sort of timings?
I mean, they'd need to be getting treated several times a week, really.
Right.
I'm afraid that fibro and ME are classics, absolute classics of health states that can be supported by the use of this kind of PMF, but it's a really long haul.
Right.
I routinely tell people you've got to allow at least 3 months, and that's using it daily, or well, preferably 2-3 times a day. So if you're hoping to get the same kind of results by going to see a therapist, I don't know, it could take a really long time.
Yeah, so that would be a good time to get their own mat, really. and then do what? I think when we spoke about this before, you said several sessions a day or 4 sessions of 10 minutes each, something like that would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, even 2 or 3 would be enough to have some effect. Obviously, when people are dealing with more serious health issues, they're going to throw everything at it, and they may end up with 4 times a day sessions. But yeah, I would for what you were talking about there, those type of conditions, they're not. For the typical person suffering from those, it's been very, very difficult for many, many years. But when you look at them in the overall, they're not that difficult to treat. They are to the average therapist, unless they know about this stuff, but they're actually not that difficult to treat. So just using them consistently day in, day out for quite a few months will usually show very significant improvement.
And then when you start the combination therapies, that's when it really speeds up the process, isn't it?
Yeah, because if you're helping the bodies to go into parasympathetic, but you're also working on deeper emotional stuff or deeper metabolic level stuff with other modalities, then it's that combination of things coming together that is going to, generate the breakthroughs.
Yeah, absolutely. And many, many other conditions. I know a friend of ours had great success recently with his dad who's got cancer, didn't he, Dale? In fact, I think he's bought a mat off you recently.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, so he's and MS as well. We've been using the mat with the combination therapies with MS. There's so many conditions that it absolutely makes such a difference. They really
I
are.
mean, with the most serious health conditions, I think it's important to not regard it as the treatment.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, if someone, for instance, is suffering from cancer, then it's not just from a legal standpoint, but also just from an ethical, moral standpoint. I have to say to people, look, please don't rely on this as your primary treatment, because this is a very multifactorial disease that you're suffering from, and you're going to need health in a number of different directions, whether you're going an allopathic mainstream route or you're going alternative or you're doing a combination of the two. Don't think of this as your primary modality. Don't think of it as a cure. I know of there are some PEMF distributors out there who will make claims that go in that direction, and not only is it a legal minefield, but it's ethically not right to say that. But yeah, if it's combined with other modalities in the right way, it can be really supportive. Even someone going through chemo radiotherapy, using PEMF can really support them through that journey.
What are the different types of mats that you have available at Lifemat? What are you offering?
Well, we have 2 main systems. There's the Omnium One system, which is an ultra portable, cheaper system. For anyone who's, say, a frequent business traveler and wants to take it with them all the time, then that would be the route to go. But 95% plus of my clients get an IMRES Prime system, and that is portable. It's not as portable as the Omnium, but that's got a more cushioned mat, and the control unit, the computer that is the heart of the system, is way more advanced, and because it's capable of remote downloads now, literally, as of this month, April, it proved what it can do by 2 completely new programs being introduced and downloadable onto the system. One for longevity, the other for cell training. And they're very, very complex signals that your average PMF system couldn't even dream of creating. So the IMRS Prime is already a very advanced system, but it's almost evolving. It's becoming more advanced over time. It comes in different levels. There's a very basic level that comes with the mat, and a pad applicator. Say if you've got lower back pain, you'd use the pad on the lower back. The level above has a smaller local applicator, 2 small pads that will fit around, say, let's say you've got tennis elbow or a twisted ankle or something like that, or you've broken a bone. The level above has you can use 2 applicators at the same time, and then the level above that, the mat becomes a combination of PMF and far infrared, and so that has further impact in terms of blood oxygenation, circulation, and again, getting back to the nervous system part, it's really good at pushing the person into parasympathetic. It's that gentle warmth coming up through the body really helps as well. So yeah, there are different systems there for different users.
So let's talk about pain, because I know you brushed on it just a bit then, but what does it do exactly for pain then? Because I know for a lot of people it's helped them with the pain management and so on. So let's talk a bit about pain and what it does towards it.
Well, you know, pain comes in many forms, and when someone's in systemic pain because of some kind of metabolic disturbance, especially if it has an autoimmune component, as most arthritis does, for instance, then you're partly helping to improve the body's response to pain through increased levels of endorphin, natural painkillers in the body, endorphins, but also reduced levels of inflammation, reduced levels of prostaglandins and other substances in the body that are involved in that pain response. But the more immediate impact tends to come through the use of local applicators. So whether the source of the pain is systemic, as in arthritis, or it's a fresh injury, you're using these local applicators to treat it. And actually the effects of that can be literally mind-blowing at times. You can injure yourself, use one of those local applicators, and I've experienced it myself. In as little as 10 minutes, I've had pain disappear. Not with a major injury, but with a small thing like trapped fingertips or something like that. With something more major, like falling off the step ladder, pruning a tree onto my driveway, onto one of my sacroiliac joints. I mean, that took 2 days of treatment every 3 hours or so. But by that 3rd day, I was pretty much out of pain and able to walk normally. So it can be incredible with pain, depending what the cause of the pain is and how you treat it. And I'm certainly not going to claim that it's the panacea for all of that. If you've got very severe osteoarthritis and nothing else has touched it, and you haven't changed your diet, and your whole body is, there's no exercise there, your body's very acidic, it's a mountain to climb to get through that. So to shift that, you've got to be prepared to do a lot of other things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I woke up with sciatica one morning, and after 20 minutes on the mat, it was gone. Completely gone. So I know from my own personal experience how it can deal, so well with pain. But as you say, for many other things, or for other things, it is a combination of a good well-being, a good looking after yourself as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So what information does it give you? Let's talk about I don't know whether Joel's got a little photo there or not, but you actually get a readout when you use the Exon Sense. You wear the little finger grip.
Yeah,
And there we are.
two. Yeah, there are two main optional accessories that come with these systems. One is the Hexagon Sense, which, as you can see in that photo,
It's not very clear.
that's a photo of an Hexagon Sense session where the user has a small finger clip on the end of one of their fingertips, and that's reading using light through the nail bed. It's reading the state of the circulation in the finger, and it's calculating the heart rate variability of the person's autonomic nervous system. So it's feeding that data through into the machine, and the machine's going, okay, this person's autonomic tone, their heart rate expressed through heart rate variability, is, let's say, the average person, it'll be relatively low. So I'm only going to change the field intensity slightly. On the other hand, someone with a really good heart rate variability, it'll see that and say, okay, this person's in pretty good shape, I'll put the intensity higher. But it's modulating the field intensity all the way through the session. So the beauty of that is it's tailoring the magnetic field to that person's state at every moment during the session. But more importantly, long term, it's exercising the autonomic nervous system through that combination of heart rate variability measurement and automatic adjustment to what it finds. So it's challenging the ANS, the autonomic nervous system, continuously through the session. So if you imagine that happening over a period of months, gradually your ANS is being exercised, so it becomes more resilient, so that your capacity to withstand stress and not be so reactive to it, not be so disturbed deep down by it, is getting gradually higher. And that can be really profound for some people.
And I think
so
it's
actually
important.
with measuring, sorry, Dale, you go.
And I think you mentioned this in our meeting before, how important it is not to overload people with it. And I guess that's why it's there. So there's always a safety and kind of like variable going on, so they're not overwhelmed with too much and so on.
Yeah, that's that touches on a very, very important aspect of PEMF, which is intensities. So this approach is extremely low intensity, low frequency, very, very gentle, and based on the biological parameters that we've evolved with. It's quite possible to ramp up that intensity massively by hundreds or even thousands of times, or tens of thousands of times. I happen to strongly disagree with the use of those more extreme types of PEMF. And the main reason is that I believe that they're massively overloading the autonomic nervous system. And if you think of the effects that stress has over time, then you can see that overloading the autonomic nervous system is a pretty bad idea. So our systems use very low intensities, and I don't even tell people generally to use the maximum intensities on these mats most of the time. It's fine when you've got an important meeting or you're going to a sports event, you're going to be performing as a top athlete or something. You know, you want to use that higher intensity for the performance effects, but you would be well advised not to be using that day in, day out, because you'll feel on top of the world. You'll feel like you've had 10 cups of coffee, but it's not what your body really needs. So yeah, gentle is the way to go. Gentle, consistent, long-term. That's the way you do it.
Yes, because overloading the nervous system is actually what has caused a lot of these things like fibromyalgia in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it will be counterproductive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I do have clients who've ignored my advice, and it gets really addictive for them. You know, they'll say, "Why would I want to use those low intent? You know, I feel I've never felt this good in my whole life. I feel invincible." And I'll say, "Yeah, I know, but it will catch up with you." And then, you know, 6 months later, they're calling me and saying, "Paul, have you got any good remedies for stress? Because I just can't. I'm just not reacting to life the way I used to." And I'll say, "Well, yeah, there's a reason." So yeah, you use it on periodically on higher levels, but most of the time on very low levels, and then you're going to be fine.
And most of the programs already set up. I think they're already like 15 on there, or 25. So they're quite low. You know, some of the programs already set, like the different kind of problems or issues. They're all quite low intensities, aren't they?
On the data on the iGuide database,
Yeah.
There are about 250 health conditions on there.
Yes, there's loads.
Yeah, with the optimal intensities for each. Most of them are in a very, as you say, very low, narrow range. It's with the major neurological ones that you tend to get a much bigger range there with higher intensities.
So tell us, how did you come to start Lifemat, Paul?
Well, I was a therapist working hands-on with people. I was going up to Harley Street in London once a week, and I had a home clinic using the various modalities I mentioned earlier. And then kind of accidentally, I came across PEMF and started experimenting with it, got great results. Realized that this was actually more my thing long term. And then I set up the Lifemat website, and it's just gone from strength to strength since then. And it's growing all the time. Yeah, so it's been quite a journey.
That's amazing. And can you export to the USA?
I can supply people in the US and other countries. Most of my clients are in the UK, but yeah, I'm happy to supply people in the US. It won't be at UK prices. That needs to be clear, because
sure.
we have price lists that are specific to different regions and countries. So the UK prices, because of sterling's depreciation, are particularly low. So we have a US price list that I can supply people at. But the training is the same, whether I'm giving a consultation and training to someone in Miami or someone in London. It's going to be exactly the same.
Yeah.
And recently I have been supplying actually more systems into Asia. For some reason, Taiwan, I've had quite a lot of systems going in there recently.
So we do have a question from What If We Could Dream. I've heard of Haleo PMF device. Is that a good PMF device for personal use?
Haleo.
Yeah, HAELO. I don't know that one.
Yeah, I don't really. It rings a bell from somewhere. I mean, the problem is you could ask me about all kinds of PMF systems, and I do have experience with over 20 of them, including some of the most well-known ones. But the problem is keeping up with them is impossible. There are now well over 100 manufacturers of PMF systems, and it's becoming like the Wild West. There are more and more coming on the market all the time, especially out of China. These crystal bed, kind of pseudo far infrared pseudo PMF systems. The Halo's just it's one. It rings a bell, as I say, but I don't remember what its characteristics are. I'm sorry.
As you say, it's we can do our own. People can do their own research on that. But your Lifemat is supplied by Swiss Bionic, who I believe
Swiss Bionic Solutions, yeah.
Bionic, right? So I believe they're the original developers of this PMF technology.
Oh no, we can't claim that.
Okay.
I mean, PMF has an incredibly long history.
Yeah.
You can take it all the way back to the 1920s. It wasn't called PMF then, but the antecedents of it you can trace back to then. It really started to become popular in the early 2000s, and then especially over the last 5-10 years, you've had this explosion of new devices coming out. If people want to, it's the best advice I can give. Anyone coming to the PMF world new is going to find it's incredibly confusing because there are so many systems available. There are so many claims and counterclaims, totally diametrically opposed to each other, high intensity versus low intensity, etc. If you want my own take on that, there's a long, it'll take you a bit of time to read it, but there's a really long buyer's guide inside the product section of the top menu on the Lifemat website. And I've tried to be reasonably objective there. I mean, obviously I'm specializing in one particular system, but I've tried to look at a lot of different factors on balance, and I've not gone over the top. I don't think I have. I've not gone over the top in saying, trying to say this is absolutely the wrong approach, except when it is. So there are some systems out there that I just don't agree with. But anyway, you could look at that fairly long report, and that will at least give you a fairly good starting point on how to assess the different PMF systems that are out there. But I warn people, it is going to be confusing. I hear everyone who calls me, not everyone, but so many people will call me and say, can you help me? Because I've heard so many different things, and I'm getting so tired of reading all this stuff, and I don't know what to make of it. So it's worth the effort, though. This can be really life-changing technology. It can really, really improve people's lives.
So where can people find that information you're just talking about?
Let's go to lifemat.co.uk. And that particular guide that I mentioned, it's under the products section, and it's just called Buyer's Guide. If you want to know more about some of the ways that PMF can work, especially with stress, there are some, I think, pretty in-depth articles in the blog section on the site as well that can be pretty useful.
Brilliant, thank you. Any other questions, Dale? Anything else in
No,
the chat?
I think that's been really some great information. What a show!
Yeah.
Really, really good show.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. So if people have got any questions for you, Paul, can they email you?
Yeah, my email address, paul@lifemat.co.uk. Phone numbers are on there as well. So if you've got people from different regions, just bear in mind the time difference. But calls to those numbers are filtered through my receptionist anyway, so it should be fine.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. It's been really good having you on.
No, I think you guys are doing some incredible work with these combined therapies. So it's a real pleasure to be talking to you. There are more great things to come. I know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so how can people get a hold of you, Laura, for sessions?
Yes, Laura Two Feathers with the number 2 at gmail.com. I always say if you'd like to go to your own ancestral fire, it's a speciality of mine, or you just like some help using shamanic practices to get your sovereignty and self-mastery, also contact me for the next combined healing date. And we have a divine feminine or sacred feminine package in June as well. If we've got a couple of places left for that, if you'd like to just come for 2 days to experience combined along with haifu for ladies. So yeah, contact me there, Dale.
And if anybody would like a psychic surgery session with myself, head over to daletobin.com. I will have some psychic surgery training dates available very soon. Yeah, what a great show, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul. And
You're
thanks
welcome.
everybody who tuned in.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Goodbye.